He's always been able to run around, extend plays, make throws from any angle, and he's a very intelligent guy who can get them in the right play, and it's hard to throw stuff at him that he's not prepared for.
All right, let me ask you, Brian, who's got the edge on Sunday? Is it Aaron Rodgers or is it this Niners defense?
I think it's the Niners defense, and it's really for the same reason what we talked about in the last segment. They have the ability to rush 4 or 5 people and be able to get to the quarterback. Now you're able to cover with 6 or 7 guys on the back end. And if you ever need to get to the point where you need to double team Davante Adams, this is the time to do it because you have the ability to rush with 4 and be able to affect the quarterback. And so when you talk about advantages, I have to go to the 49ers side, because they have the ability to do the things that no other team really in the league that has that same ability. Last week, they had 6 sacks against the Vikings. All of those first-round picks that they have up front, all of those guys had a sack. They have the ability to attack the quarterback. However, I don't think the game is going to go the same way as it went in Week 12. I don't think the Packers are going to fumble on the 5th play of the game and then have 3 straight 3-and-outs after that and 6 punts in the first half. That's not going to happen again. I think Aaron Rodgers is able to move the ball. However, this is a tough defense to play against. They're physically sound up front. They are aggressive. And I think Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, knows how to attack this offense. And if you take away Davante Adams, now Aaron Rodgers has to trust someone else. And I'm not sure that trust is there.
The Niners defense has the clear edge over the Packers offense. If the Packers are going to pull off this upset, if they're going to get to Aaron Rodgers' 2nd Super Bowl of his career, it's going to have to be because the Packers defense really takes advantage of where they have advantages on the Niners offense.
Which is where?
Well, which is forcing turnovers on Jimmy Garoppolo. Only 2 quarterbacks in football this year. I think Jameis and Baker threw an interception in more games this year than Jimmy did. Jimmy threw 11 of his games this year. He threw a pick. Baker, I think, was 13. Jameis was 12. Like, force turnovers, get to the opposing quarterback. That's where the Packers' edge is going to have to be exerted, because while the Niners have a decided edge when the Packers have the football, the question is how big of an edge is it? In the first game, they won the game by doing that. The Niners offense didn't really get rolling at all in that game, certainly not until the very end of the first half, but the Packers offense was totally inept. It looked like it was the worst offense in football. They're not, obviously, but that's what that defensive front made them look like. Your point on Davante Adams, I think, is a stellar one. Yesterday, we were asked if Amari Cooper leaves the Cowboys, where would I like him to go? And I said the Packers, because they've been trying to develop a second receiver alongside Davante Adams ever since they let Jordy go. Then they let Randall Cobb go. They've had Marquez Valdez-Scantling, all these different young players that they have tried to turn into legitimate number 2s. None of them have turned into that. Jimmy Graham has been a bit of a disappointment in Green Bay, that huge play against Seattle notwithstanding. So if you are the San Francisco 49ers, you say, okay, we hope Aaron Jones doesn't kill us, but we are going to make sure Davante Adams does not kill us. Now, I'm sure Richard Sherman's going to say, let me handle him one-on-one, but you don't have to do that, right? Because you can get home with 4. I mentioned a moment ago how the Titans only have 1 guy with more than 5 sacks. The Niners, it's man after man that is a threat for a 2 or 3 sack game. Yes, Nicky Bosa is sensational, but Dee Ford's a guy they traded for this offseason to add to that pass rush. Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, the former number 3 overall pick of the draft, is the worst of those first-round picks. Even he had a sack in that game against the Vikings. So this is where the Packers, I think, have to kind of hold on for dear life. Hope they can hit a couple shots. Don't have those quick 3-and-outs. Don't let Rodgers get sacked a half-dozen times the way he was in the first meeting. But when healthy, Brian, this Niners defensive front has been as dominant as any unit in either conference in the entire NFL. That is what has propelled them to this point.
That defensive front has been absolutely great. Here's the thing that the Green Bay Packers have to do. They have to be successful on 1st and 2nd down. Yeah. If they get into a situation when it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, that's disaster. That spells disaster. The whole world
knows they're passing.
Absolutely. And the whole world knows, not only the whole world, those front 4, more importantly, have the ability to get to the quarterback, and they know that you're passing. Here's some stats on Davante Adams and how critical he is to that Packers offense. In the last 8 games, he has 91 targets. The next closest guy is Allen Lazard with 33 targets in the last 8 games. So if you take away Davante Adams, in effect, you almost take away 90% of that offense, because he has the ability to hurt so many people, and Aaron Rodgers loves throwing him the football. And so if I'm the 49ers, I'm saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start the game. I'm going to rush 4. If we can get to the quarterback, I have no reason to change that. If something happens where you're completing the ball down the field, I'm just going to start double teaming Davante Adams and now make Aaron Rodgers find someone else. And if he can't beat us with someone else, then I'm okay with that. But if I'm not going to allow Davante Adams to beat us.
To your point, 10 times this year, Davante Adams has had at least 60 yards from scrimmage. 10 times the Packers have won those games. 10-0 when he has at least 60 scrimmage yards. Not even a huge game. 4-3 when he's held to less than 60 yards from scrimmage and their points per game go down by a full touchdown. He is the only weapon Aaron Rodgers actually trusts right now on the offense.
I know you're a big fan of Kyle Shanahan and what he's done this year. How much of the coaching mismatch between LaFleur and Shanahan will actually affect this game?
Well, with respect to your former coach, your friend, and the coach of my team, Andy Reid, I think Kyle Shanahan's the best coach left in the playoffs. I think Kyle Shanahan is an A. He is an A-level coach that will be an A-plus coach if and when they win the Super Bowl, either this year or at some point in the future. The only thing that's missing is sustained playoff success. It's unfair for me to talk about a massive mismatch in relation to LaFleur because he hasn't been around long enough. Instead, I will just say it like this. Kyle Shanahan, it is a coaching mismatch against 90% of the coaches in football, in my opinion. I think there are Sean McDermott, who I think is a very good coach and also a young coach. I think it'd be a coaching mismatch. If it's Andy Reid, it's not a mismatch, but I still give the edge to Kyle Shanahan. So LaFleur, I think he's done a really good job. Rookie head coach, egos in Green Bay, a lot of expectations. They're down 13-3 a game from the Super Bowl, but to me, he ain't Kyle Shanahan.
Even though you have an extension of LaFleur almost out on that field and Aaron Rodgers, who you know is going to audible when he wants to and when he has to?
I think in critical situations, you allow Aaron Rodgers to do whatever he wants to do. I think there's going to be a point in this game where you're saying, hey, Aaron Rodgers, just go have your way. We're going to go up-tempo. We're going to go no huddle. We're going to allow you to call whatever play that you want to play. That takes the coaching out of it just a bit. In playoff games, it's important to have an experienced coach on the sideline. In this case, for the Packers, you have an experienced coach type of player in the game for Aaron Rodgers. I just don't know that they have enough horses outside of Rodgers to affect the game in that way.
Yeah, Jenna, to your point, I think once the game starts, the coaching edge is almost muted entirely because Kyle Shanahan's coaching an offense that is going to be led by Jimmy Garoppolo, and Matt LaFleur's coaching an offense going to be led by Aaron Rodgers. But the mismatch to me is about during the week. I think Kyle Shanahan is going to have guys, at least early in the game, potentially running wide open if Preston Sedarius-Smith cannot get home quickly because he's going to look at tape. He's going to say, this is what they do. This is what we need to do. I think once the game starts, Rodgers can make adjustments, but that didn't matter in the Week 12 matchup. Right. So they were down. The game was over.
And he had like 104 passing yards.
Absolutely. They had the pass, and now these pass rushers get to the quarterback.
100%. So I just think right now the mismatch is far greater as we sit here this Thursday morning than it necessarily will be Sunday evening.
The key to this game is going to be, for at least the Packers, how Aaron Rodgers plays. But coming up, can the Chiefs get past the Titans if Mahomes doesn't have an MVP performance? That's next on First Things First.
Packers better have a
NFL can guard any of us. I mean, and that's no disrespect to nobody. That's just the confidence that I got. I mean, in myself and just the wideouts I got around me, including the tight ends and the running backs. I feel like no DB unit, no secondary unit, no linebacker, or any defense can guard any of us. So man-to-man is just easy for us to beat. And if you just allow us to just run through zones, it's even easier.
I love that he's like, no disrespect to anybody, but let me tell you, what do you think, Nick? Is it a mistake giving the Titans bulletin board material? I know that you don't buy into bulletin board material, but a lot of the athletes that come out here say it's an actual thing, and we'll get to Brian in a second.
Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I'm not a big believer in the bulletin board material as far as were the Titans going to be less focused on stopping the Chiefs offense with a chance to go to the Super Bowl, the biggest game any of these guys or almost any of these guys have ever played in, until they heard Tyreek Hill kind of disrespect them in a very self-congratulatory way. And they're like, well, now we're locked in. So I don't really care about the bulletin board part of it. I do care about the substance of what he said. And I don't think he's right when he says nobody can guard any of us. I would change out the word any for the word all. Nobody can guard all of them. That is the problem the Chiefs pose when you have a quarterback who can make every throw on the field to every quadrant on the field. So you have to defend, every blade of grass, as the cliche goes, and you've got your 5 top pass catchers on the year. Travis Kelce has a game where he had 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was last week. Tyreek Hill has a game where he had 157 yards. Sammy Watkins had a game where he had 198 and 3 touchdowns. Demarcus Robinson had a game where he had 172 and 2 touchdowns. Rookie McCole Hardman had a game where he had nearly 100 yards and a touchdown. That's 5 guys, all of whom, aside from Kelsey, have blazing speed, and Kelsey might be the very best in the league at his position, that you are left without any correct answer, and it's what he alluded to at the end. The Chiefs' offense has absolutely shredded zone defense.